Kellan Fluckiger is.
What did you? Bless you. That's what I want.
You've been dying. You've been dying to do that. Flew-Key-Grr.
Yes, I'm sure he's never heard that either.
Never ever is a world-renowned transformation coach. And by the way, guys, you got to dig into this stuff. Go to yourultimatelifepodcast.com. This is some remarkable stuff, and I think it's remarkable because I agree with it. It's a variation on something that I believe, and I am so behind what we're going to be talking about today. International speaker, author of more than 20 books, including the bestseller The Results Equation: From Dream to Done in 5 Simple Steps, which is a title right out of your imagination, Lindsay.
Love it.
And what we're talking about this morning with this former C-suite executive, what we're talking about with Kellan is basically when good enough is not enough and is actually ruining your life and the life of everybody around you. Kellan, we are honored to welcome you as the
Wow. Yeah, we brought in the sirens to welcome you on, Kellan.
new studio, by the way, haven't soundproofed it entirely. Good morning to you, sir.
Hey, thanks very much. Glad to be here. Delighted to be here, and delighted with the little conversation I just heard ahead of time. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're sorry for the stupidity that is this show, but we're going to go real serious now that we've got an expert here with us. And Kellan, I'm going to be real honest. We're just going to dive in because I have zero capacity or bandwidth for small talk, and that's why I love conversations with people like you, because after going through your work, I know you are a guy that's ready to dive in. And so here's the thing. I love talking about the idea that we don't have to die to live. I'm obsessed with these near-death stories and then seeing what people do with their life on the other side of it. But I'm willing to bet that we're going to talk about what you went through. You pushed yourself to a point of flatlining and coming back on the other side. And I want to start right there before we go into your current work, because take us to that moment when you, well, I guess I'll let you give our audience a little bit of overview what happened, but I want to hear about the moment when you realized that you really, the aha moment where you really did have a second chance, and what's on the other side, because I know all of our audience, you would assume and hope that you don't want anyone out there to have to go through what you went through. So that's all over the place, but take us to the moment when you realized, I have a second chance, what am I going to do with it?
So there were two. I only died once, but the first one happened in 2007 at the end of a 30-year career, when I was very successful on the outside, kind of like movie stuff, and behind the scenes I was an absolute disaster, an addict, and all kinds of stuff going on behind the scenes. And I had a divine intervention then that gave me the chance to change my life, and I took it. After 11 years of working on that and becoming a coach and an author and so forth, in 2018, now 11 years later, I contracted a fatal illness and did flatline, actually died in the ICU of the University of Alberta Medical Center. And the disease I had was fatal. It was necrotizing MRSA in both lungs and in the bloodstream, and that's a fatal disease. Sometimes even if you get it on your skin, it eats your skin and stuff like that. Anyway, so I flatlined, and when I came to spiritually, I was no longer in the ICU, but I was in sort of a grayish room, and I sat up and looked over my left shoulder, and there was a doorway there, and for some reason I wanted to be at the door, so I'm standing at the doorway, leaning on the door jamb on my right shoulder, and I looked across, and the other side was white. It wasn't streaming through, but it was gray on my side and white on that side, and there was someone leaning against that door jamb, like literally arm's length. And he looked straight at me and he said, "Do you want to come home?" And I knew, in the way you only know things there, the instant who I was talking to, what the threshold was, what the question meant. And it was funny because, well, not funny, but interesting. There was no expectation about what the answer should be, but you knew without question there was going to be an answer. And so we talked for a while about what had happened in the 11 years since I had, completely walked away from everything that I had known and ruined and started my life over, and what I'd been up to, and the books and the coaching clients and the mission I was on. And finally I said to him, I'm just not done yet. And then he said, okay. And I am certain that that's when they were able to restart my heart in the ICU, because I was there. In other words, I'm here by choice. I was given a straight-up choice with no expectation about what the answer should be, considering what I had been gifted and the stuff I'd done in the previous 11 years. And in 2007, that was the year I was 52. So it's not like I hadn't spent decades of like ruin. I had. And having had that awakening in 2007 and then pursued it relentlessly, my choice in 11 years later was I'm not done yet. After that, there were two more conversations on the next 2 days, and they were quite long. Well, the second one was really, really long, and I don't know if we have time for all of that. But the fundamental choice was, I'm not done yet. I was in a coma for 17 days before I was able to be revived because of the nature of the illness that I had, which trashed my lungs, and I lost 35 pounds and couldn't walk, and on and on and on. So that was the moment of fundamental choice. Do you want to come home? We considered it, and I said, I'm not done yet.
I wanted to kind of follow up by saying it's is interesting, Lindsay, because the two human beings, Sarah Lee and now Kellan, who joins us this morning, are two people who have actually got off of their deathbeds filled with what I call dramatic renewal of purpose. And I was kind of curious to ask you this question because a lot of people get a second chance, get a new lease on life. Somebody shows up and says, not time. It's not time to come home yet. Get back in the game. We got to win this thing. And I was curious, when you get back in, a lot of people are kind of filled with the Holy Spirit, the great cosmic woo, whatever you want to call it. But how do you control that? How do you channel that? Because you can see where a person could get overwhelmed by that sudden feeling of anybody that's been told that a life-threatening diagnosis, in fact, is not going to happen, that they're going to get a second chance. How do you control the joy, the wild joy and ecstasy that come from a second chance in the game?
So I'll tell you exactly what I do. It's not mysterious or complicated. There are two things that I have been doing and working on and improving since 2007, and then more fueled by 2018, the actual death experience. And that is this. I have created a document, which I call a PTAC, Personal Truth and Commitment Document, which is completely private and personal. And it is a declaration of who I am in relationship to the divine. So in other words, everything in there is because I said so. This is who I am. I choose it. And it's sacred, and it is so powerful that when I use it, and I do that, that's part two. Part two is after the creation of a document that is so powerful that every time you say it, it makes you weep. The next piece and most important piece is you have to use it every single day, because I don't know why we were created to die every night and reborn every morning, like we sleep away a third of our lives. Why? I don't know. That wasn't one of the questions we talked about in the 3 visits. Maybe next time. But the point is we do, and just like an Olympic athlete doesn't warm up after the game. A vocalist doesn't warm up after the concert. Why on earth would we start or live any day, precious day of our lives, without getting in the very best shape, physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, that we can? And so the second part is I have a 2.5-hour creation, DCP, daily creation process, that I go through every day without fail. I never skip. And the purpose of it is to both remind and renew the commitments that I have made about who I am in the world just because I declared it, not for anyone's approval or anything else. And the combination of the document, which, I tweak all the time to make it relevant and as I grow and things, and a daily creation process that I never skip, puts me in that peak form for both coaching, for writing. I'm writing 2 more books right now. I'm in a recording studio. I'm doing some music. I have 94 songs. Just all of that comes from being in that peak state every day.
So your book, The Results Equation, which I recommend to people listening, and the thing that probably stands out to me the most, because first of all, there's so many people listening that know that they're meant for more, or feel like they're meant for more, but so many people get paralyzed by fear or burnout or whatever you want to call it. And in the results equation, you give the 5-step path that you talk about to go from, and here's what I love, from dream to done. I love that. And I'm just curious, what's the most, to you and some of your coaching and people you work with, the most common reason that people get stuck in that dream phase, that place where, because their whole thing, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. But why do we not go from dream to done? What holds us up?
Well, there's lots of ways to say it, but the way I will say it right now is we get stuck in the swamp of addiction to mediocrity. We don't truly learn to love ourselves, even with our flaws and mistakes. We don't truly own the fact that we have a mission, a purpose, a reason, a calling. We were sent here with a reason, and we knew it and we agreed to it before we got here. And then we get here and all the crap happens around us in life, and the doubts were taught practically from the cradle, friends and grades and school and parents and betrayals and all of those things teach us we're not good enough. And we live by the fear that we're only as good as the opinions of others. And so between fear of failure, the story that we're not good enough, that somebody else is cool but I suck, all of those things, however you language them, are the core poison that keeps us stuck in addiction to mediocrity or learned helplessness.
Well, I'll tell you this right now, Kellan. The thing that makes me angriest at myself is none of the mistakes I've made in my life, but one of the realizations I've had later on in my life is I want people to like me, and I want people to admire the work that I do, and I want them to see how much work I've done, but I don't care anymore. And what I mean by that is I care very much about if I can meet my own expectations and if I can create the things that I want to create. But I'm no longer interested in whether or not, people recognize me for who I am. And I'm wondering if there are people that confuse success between accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish or getting the praise that you need to fuel you forward. Do you find that's a place that if people can break through and focus on themselves and the work, they can get past the idea that they need to be validated or vindicated by those around them?
So absolutely. And I invented a name for that. When COVID started 5 years ago, I created the podcast that I have, which is Your Ultimate Life, and I'm just about to 1,000 episodes. And the reason I created a disease because COVID was happening, and I called it WITOT, W-I-T-O-T, the WITOT fungus. And then people always say, wow, what is that? And it stands for what I think others think. And so when people talk about that, about the need for external motivation and validation, I jokingly say, you're infected with the WITOT fungus. Because the truth is, what other people think of me is none of my business. I am called and committed to do a thing that I am comfortable with my own heart and my Creator. I know because of what I do, it adds good to the world. And beyond that, I no longer care. And yes, I have to make a living, and yes, I write books, and yes, I do all that stuff to create money, but money follows value. And so I truly now know that if someone hates you or me, that is just their lens. So whatever their life experience has been, it's brought them to a place where they look at that salad. I don't want salad. I don't want Kellan. That's okay. I don't need to create drama out of that. And so that is a learning. I have learned to no longer, not flippantly, but truly just love. And I don't need you or anybody to reciprocate. I'm okay with who I am.
We're okay with you, who you are, by the way. We're so glad to have you on today, Kellan. And you've got a very lofty goal of reaching 300 million people with this message that we're going to talk about here before we run out of time. But I want to ask first, right before that, because you coach entrepreneurs and high-level performers and spiritual seekers of the like. Is there a thread that connects all of them that you see?
Yes. 95%, 19 out of 20 people that I meet, and I meet a lot of people every week, I do that on purpose, are not at that moment ready to be coached. like Olympic level, get it done no matter what's in the way kind of coaching. They're looking for the easy button. We live in a download and double click world. Everything needs to be solved in the length of a TV sitcom, that kind of feeling. And that isn't real growth and experience. And the rare few that are ready to grow in whatever the area, business growth, create more clients, start a new company, fix a relationship, forgive and get rid of old things that are hanging on and keeping them locked up. They show up with fire. And what they're looking for is, can somebody be with me, walk with me, stand with me, encourage me, help me? I love those. And they're the ones that I do the best with, and that we create staggering results.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, Lindsay, I love the acronym you came up with for the fictitious disease. It kind of reminds me, early in my career, I listened to a lot of motivational sales stuff with a guy named Zig Ziglar, and he had one. It was WIIFM. We're sitting here in a radio studio, and I thought about that, but what's in it for me? And that's really what I thought of when he shared that.
Yeah, I mean, and to kind of toss that back to you, Kellan, is that's an okay view, isn't it? The idea that, you need to make sure that there is some value added for yourself. I mean, altruism is a wonderful thing, but if in fact you're not growing from what you're contributing, then it really isn't advancing your cause. Which, by the way, Lindsay talks about, when we were on the airplane, if you don't put your mask on first, you can't save your kids, right?
That's why I do my morning creation process every day. That is how I feed my body, my spirit, my soul, and I am full. And that way, when I serve all day long with all the love I can muster and all the power I can coach with, I coach everybody like their soul is mine to answer for. I know it's not, but I feel like that. But I've prepared myself and put my own mask on 53 layers so that I can show up like that all day.
Wow. Okay, so you're trying to reach 300 million people. You got 5. There's 4 over in that studio in New Orleans, and you got me here in Nashville. So that's 5 you can cross off now.
He's got Trucker Bosun too. Trucker Bosun is in, so he's got another guy on
Yes.
on the chat.
Yeah. Everybody listening as well. So why that number? Well, obviously, and I am wildly aware. I'm a songwriter here in Nashville, and I think that I've become aware lately of why I'm here on this earth is to do the things that light me up while also finding ways to light other people up. And I think that's, when your passion meets your purpose and you're bringing joy to you and others around you, then you've nailed it. It's kind of how I feel. So, but I don't know about you. Why did you come up with this number, and why is it important to you to not only lift yourself up, but everyone around you and create that ripple effect throughout the world?
Fabulous question, and there's something I notice every single time, and that's without exception. I meet someone and they tell me a story about overcoming some difficulty, challenge, betrayal, illness, financial burden, whatever it is, and they had the grit and determination to do better and to overcome that. Always, 100% of the time, there arises at the same time in us as humans the desire to help others, to help them avoid the pain, the struggle. It arises every single time. I think it's just our nature. We're built to love and serve. So 300 million, a few years ago, I thought, I need to reach more people and whatever. So I just picked a number of 10 million. And in order to do that, I was already doing my first year of podcasting, and I was on 300 or 400 shows that year of other people's, of just as much as I could do. And that near the end of that year, my year starts October 14th, and there's a story about that we probably don't have time for. But anyway, in September, I was on a show with 2 guys for an hour, and at the end of the show, both of them were emotional, and one of them said to me, "You need a bigger number." And I said, "Okay, I've been on with you for 1 hour, and you've changed my life, and I'm going to talk to at least 1,000 people this week. You need a bigger number." Okay, cool. So then the year ended, and I set the number at 50 the next year and did everything I could with measuring audiences and shows. And I have an LA talk radio show on Tuesday afternoons. It's live, and as well as the podcast and the books and songs and everything else. And I love the fact that you're a songwriter, by the way. Anyway, so
come write a song with me in Nashville, Kellan.
Yeah, I will. I've got.
Okay.
You can look me up on Spotify. I've got 94 songs in commercial release right now. And I love
Awesome
stuff. So anyway, I said 50. And we reached 75 that year. So then I jumped and did 250 the next year, and I don't think we got it. I think we got about 100 and a quarter. So that was last year. And this year, which ends in 3.5 months, October 14th, I went to 300 and have put everything in it. And just the divine stuff that has showed up with my ability to, not mine, but the universe's ability to provide opportunities and to leverage that stuff has blown my mind. So with all my heart, I believe by October 14th, we'll reach 300 with the message that of what you described, your ability to create your own life any way you want and to live in purpose, prosperity, and joy, and not just in, learned helplessness and floating along, letting whatever happens happen. So that's where the number came from, and I'm committed as life and breath to get there.
Kellan Fluckiger joins us this morning, and we got to say goodbye to you. We're so thrilled to have you. By the way, let me spell Kellan's last name. Kellan is spelled like Kellan Moore, who is the coach of the Saints, Kellan, but FLUCKIGER.com. You can also find yourultimatelifepodcast.com. Guys, highest of recommendation for all of you dudes in Dude Town looking for a way to be the best dude you possibly can be. I can't recommend this stuff enough. You can find him on X at the same place. You can find him on the gram of Insta at the same place.
We're begging you to listen to and take in his work because we need everyone to be a better person. Please listen. Please listen to Your Ultimate Life podcast. Kellan, thank you so much, and please come back again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you got it.